All right, I am calling this thing simply Clipboard Classroom Chronicles. It's a lot going on. But since we don't have the actual classroom, I'll be kind of teaching from my clipboard. I did bring pencils though to kind of make it feel like it is F61 or 303 and 306. But here's the overall agenda. I will be going over the Iready lesson for the week and then giving shout outs to students who have been reading on Epic and really attaining those rigorous goals that we have set. And really, in just layman's terms, that's just reading. As long as you have been reading, eventually I'll do the same thing with Iready, but I am going to kind of go over the lesson for the week. Let's jump straight on into it. I know you see figurative language on the front of Miss Anthony's clipboard. We've kind of hit a little bit of figurative language, but overall, I'm just going to kind of throw in just the high points about figurative language because the lesson that they gave us was words in context, which was simply just beginner poetry. What you should be looking for when you are digesting or understanding a poem. So I will model, and then as I go through the model, I will expect the students to write what I have. So materials needed, make sure you have the worksheets, and then parents make sure they have a pencil and the video so they can kind of track along with Miss Anthony. But I'll jump straight into it. I'm using both terms, literal and non-literal. And I know we're like, what do these words mean? Right? Okay. But when I say the word literal, you always hear Miss Anthony say literally. It means exactly what's coming out of my mouth. So if I say the dog ran or I say Susie sad, I literally mean, those literal words mean Susie sad or the dog actually ran. It's when we get into non-literal language that kind of gets funny. And non-literal language is simply that, non-literal. Think about the prefix. We've done prefixes and suffixes, but non means not or no. So non-literal language means just that. It's not exactly what the author is saying, but we have to infer or draw conclusions to actually understand what the author wants us to know inside of the story. In our case this week, inside of a poem. Okay. All right, let's get to the first page. You know, they always give us a picture, but I want you to annotate as Miss Anthony has already done, but I am going to go over my annotations to give you time to make sure that your first page is annotated like mine is. And then we'll kind of hit just some brief examples of non-literal language, also known as figurative language. But here we go. I won't read all of this. I'm simply just going to focus on the big points. Okay. Non-literal. Notice how Miss Anthony has circled non-literal, and I underline non because the prefix is saying not or no, right? And so I put my arrow telling me what this word means, and I'm circling it because it's important. I'm annotating. So it means I'm not quite exactly meaning what I'm saying. So Miss Anthony wrote not quite the exact meaning. So I'm speaking, but not to the point where you actually might understand what I'm saying unless I explain it to you. Right, and we're going to talk about reasons why authors do that. Sometimes to kind of liven up stories and bring things to life for us. And then when I say literal, it's exactly what I just said. Okay, if I said Susie is sad, that's exactly what Susie is. So let's take a look at, my last one, context clues. Something that we are already familiar with. I use context clues, and they are actually hints that I normally find around the word. And this week, it'll also be around the phrase. So they might give us a non-literal phrase, and we might have to figure out what the author's talking about. Okay, but we'll use those context clues or those hints. So notice Miss Anthony wrote in parentheses, hints around the word or the phrase. There's my context clue. Let's look at the picture quickly. You know, every week they give us a picture to kind of introduce us so we can dive in on that thing. Okay, so we notice a young boy kind of hiding under the sheets reading his book, and we see an owl with a kind of question mark, and we see dad. I already kind of figured out what's going on just looking at the picture, but it's some things that I wanted to pull out so you can pull them out as well. All right, so I'll read. Arthur liked nothing better than to stay up reading long after he was supposed to be asleep. He would pull his blanket over his head like a tent, turn on his book light, and get lost in his story. Tonight, though, his dad caught him. Uh-oh. Turn off that light, Night Owl, said his dad. You have got school tomorrow. Uh-oh. What exactly, excuse me, am I looking for here? Well, I'm looking for 2 types of non-literal language that I see. Miss Anthony has circled them for you just because it's my time to do the work. It's your time to just watch so you can make sure that it's done correctly when it's your time to produce. But I want you to just look at what Miss Anthony has done already. I have circled night owl. I've circled night owl because I'm not necessarily sure why they're calling this young man, this little boy, a night owl. Okay, but let's figure out what the author means, or the illustrator of this picture wants us to understand about him when we say night owl. And then I'll be referring to the chart as I'm talking. You know, the second sheet, they always give us a little chart that goes along. Mine is filled out. But we'll get back to that. So night owl, even if I know what a night owl is, context clues, going back to that, my hints, I'm looking for hints above or around the word. In my case, I'm looking above to understand what a night owl is. Watch this. Staying up late, long after he was supposed to be asleep. Sounds like hints to me. So I am going to underline staying up, which is implying that he's supposed to be asleep. And then it tells me long after he was supposed to be asleep. So I know asleep means it's nighttime. So that gives me the beginning part, night. And then owl. Oh, Miss Anthony, owls are nocturnal animals. Nocturnal meaning nighttime animals. So they're calling him a night owl simply because he's supposed to be asleep, but he wants to stay up, Lord, all times of the night. So in Miss Anthony's chart, I'm going to give us a lovely chart. If you see my chart, it has literal meaning, which means my exact words, context clues. And here they've already given us the context clues. They have already taken that heavy load for us. And then meaning in the passage. In our case, meaning in the picture. So I put beside night owl because they gave us the word that they want us to look up or want us to break down. I put in this box someone who wants to stay up late at night. They can't get together and go to sleep. That's what a night owl is. So I went ahead and wrote that in that box. Go ahead at this moment and make sure you write that in that box. And I will go back to the next picture as well to make sure that you have annotated that first page for me, okay? The next one they say we're looking for in the chart is get lost. Sometimes when we say get lost, that means go away somewhere differently. But in our case, let's go back to our picture. Always going back to referring to my text evidence, citing text evidence at all times, right, guys? So if I say get lost and I put here, Miss Anthony put her notes, note takers are history makers. Do get lost on camera with students. So here we go. Get lost. I'm going to circle get lost like I did night owl. And I put here with get lost, it says had his head underneath the blanket. So maybe he's lost in the blanket. Turn on his book light. Uh-oh. Looks like he's reading. And then it says dad caught him, which normally means if you're caught, you're not paying attention. So this is my biggest clue here. He's not paying attention. Caught him. And you've got school tomorrow. So Miss Anthony's going to have to infer. I have to draw a conclusion. If his dad caught him doing something, then more than likely he was focused on something else, right? While his dad was right behind him. So Miss Anthony put this in her handy dandy toolbox right here. On my second page where it says get lost. Here's my context clue. Lost in his story. And then I put meaning of the passage, focusing so hard on something that all other things don't matter. He was reading, and I like that. He was reading and so intent with the reading that the rest of it didn't matter. He had gotten just so engrossed in that book. Sounds like a good student to me. Make sure that your chart, the front as well, and I will leave this up here for a second so you can see. Make sure your chart looks like Miss Anthony. Just kind of get them out, especially these up here. Even if you don't get the picture down here, just like class, make sure you get the important words for the lesson, right? Non-literal, not exactly what I mean. We're also going to talk about it being known as figurative, and then literal. I said what I said, right? Exactly what I mean. So let's real quick. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Let's take a look at our figurative language chart. Remember, Miss Anthony said figurative is just another way to say non-literal. Trying to get my clipboard together. I don't know, Miss. All right. Figurative is another way to say non-literal. Repeat after me. Figurative. It's a nice big word. Figurative language. We know language is just words. Here are the types of figurative language that we're just discussing. It's one missing, idiom. But I'm not really focusing on that one. Just kind of focusing on the ones that are here for us. It's a guideline. And I'm not going to do a deep dive into them, but I am just going to kind of basically cover them. Simile, or cover them in a basic way. Simile, I'm comparing two or more things, and I use like or as. So when I'm looking for similes, I'm looking for these here, like or as. Metaphor is very similar to a simile. I just don't have any signal words like or as. I'm still comparing two or more things. I just don't use like or as. Okay, personification, we had a lot of that in our Peter Pan story, where we make things have people, actions, and behaviors, like the stars talking. We know stars don't talk, right? But personification, the root word is person. That's when I'm giving things people, a person, action. I'm giving them people behaviors. And then hyperbole is when I'm what y'all say, doing too much. I'm exaggerating. It's extreme exaggeration. I have been waiting a million years for you to get that stuff off the floor. Yes. Okay. That's a hyperbole. It's some big words. Alliteration is just simply using the same beginning sound. Dog, Dave, donkey. Ditch digger's daughters. Okay, very classic film, children. And then onomatopoeia is sound. We use a lot of that in our narrative writing. Boom, bang, bing, boop, plop, crack. Whoa. Those are onomatopoeia. That brings a story all the way to life. So if something falls, I need to use my onomatopoeia. Big words for us, okay? Not really our focus, but I did want to just kind of introduce us to them, right? So we're not kind of just left in the cold with that. All right, let's go back to just the Iready lesson. Non-literal versus literal language. Let's go to our second story that says seaside surprises. You know, they always give us an annotation box with close reader habits, and they tell us what we should do in order to be successful, right? So when I read, it tells me, and I've annotated my close reader habit box. It says, which words and phrases are unfamiliar? I put here unfamiliar, remember, words I don't know or used in ways that I might not understand. Here's my action word, underline details that help me figure out what they mean or their meanings. So I am going to do kind of a quick read, and I will pick out the words that I know might be quite unfamiliar to us, also as well as the phrases that are non-literal, or what's that other word? Talk to me. Is figurative, right? All right, let's read. Seaside surprises, eyes too. I know we got it. Let's go. Paragraph 1. I didn't know what to expect when my family went hiking on the Oregon coast. It says, I've never seen the Pacific Ocean before, but I sure knew what I wanted to see. A whale. It says, after a picnic lunch, we hiked through a thick rainforest. We saw chipmunks, a lizard, and a hawk. Notice I'm pausing for the commas. The trail gently snaked its way up the steep mountainside to the top of a huge rocky cliff with a great view of the ocean. But I couldn't spot any whales. Then we heard something move through the woods right behind us. We turned, and there stood a huge elk with giant antlers. Oh, even if I didn't know what elk meant, giant antlers. We all froze in place, barely breathing, until the animal slowly walked away. But then we finally relaxed. We all started laughing and jumping around in excitement. But next, the trail wound down to a sandy beach. Waves hammered the shore. We saw seagulls, crabs, clams, and even some seals happily baking themselves out on the warm rocks, but no whales. It was fun, but then it was time to go. Everyone else started walking back to our trail, but my eyes were locked on the ocean. And then it happened. Not just one whale, but a whole pod of them broke the surface of the water. I was so stunned that I could barely shout, "Look!" All right, let's look at the words Miss Anthony has annotated, and even the phrases. Always keep in mind, note takers are history makers. Here we go. The first one, Miss Anthony, kind of just, it stuck with me, it resonated, was gently snaked. Well, what does it mean when they say snaked? I didn't know snaked was a verb. I always thought snake was a noun. However, the way they use it, think about the noun, the actual animal snake or reptile snake, and think about its motion. So when it's saying it snaked up the mountainside, it's probably saying it curved its way up, slithered, possibly even up that mountainside. But here's my non-literal language. We all froze in place. Let me ask myself, do I think that people really were frozen by the ice? I mean, we're at the ocean, so it's possible. No, more than likely, non-literally, when I'm froze in place, something has more than likely startled me or made me nervous. So it has me like this. My position is kind of frozen, right? Here are my clues. It tells me underline here. I did it. Barely breathing, then we finally relax. If I see finally relaxed, that must mean I was not originally relaxed, which tells me that being frozen in place means that I was startled and I just kind of stopped and stood still. Okay. So also, you know, this has a chart as well. All of the guided and modeling has a chart as well. Y'all know. Anthony's kind of struggling to get to the chart. Here we go. All right. Here we go. Frozen place. They give us the chart. Literal meaning. Then look at the context clues. Barely breathing. Miss Anthony put her context clues. Finally relax. And I put exactly what I just did, guys. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Here we go. Telling the reader that they were initially very tense, which means I was kind of uptight. And it says meaning in the passage. It means they stood really still. It didn't really move. And I put here just kind of a side note. Normally, when they use that term, it means it's something that has happened that has made the character fearful or has given the character a sense of fear. Make sure that your chart looks like Miss Anthony's chart. I know I'm moving kind of fast, guys. If you ever want to go back and just kind of rewind the video to make sure you have everything, that is perfectly fine with me. All right. All right. It's other ones. So I'm going back into the passage. Hammered. I'm not sure what the word hammered means. I know what a hammer does. So based on the literal word hammer, I know that it does something that is kind of hard, abrasive, tough, kind of makes that kind of motion. So waves kind of hammering. I know that they're not lightly brushing on shore. They must have some kind of strong force coming on the shore. There's my context clues. Watch this. And I will remind us of this. Sometimes the context clues are not as in-depth as others might be. And in this case, there it is. It says hammered the shore. And really, that's the only context clue we have. They tell us what's on the shore, but they do not mention anything else that lets me know that it's kind of a heavy hit. I have to know what a hammer is. And guys, we know what a hammer is, right? And then I just noted that look, onomatopoeia, going back to our figurative language lesson. By the way, parents, I will put a link to figurative language, just material, just so you have it this week. And if you want to go over figurative language with your babies this week, let's do it, right? All right. Here we go. Now, listen, remember what Miss Anthony said at the beginning. Really, when we talk about literal versus non-literal language, it's because we're learning how to understand poems. And we're not going to just fully get into poetry because we've kind of already talked about that. It is a genre of literature. But in our case, it's helping us to understand. Lesson 12 is helping us to understand how to read a poem. And maybe the funny language that might be inside of a poem when I see it, right? Let's go to the poem, The Wind and the Leaves. And as I read, we'll look at the close reader habit box first. Miss Anthony wasn't quite fond of this close reader habit box. So she added some material for us to do, right? A task for us to do as we look at this poem. Right? It says, what words, and I did annotate the close reader habit box, even though I added a little side note for us as we kind of go into the poem. It says, what words in the last stanza, so I circled last stanza because that's where I'm looking, have non-literal or figurative meaning? I underline the word because that's my action. Words in 9 through 12 that would normally be used to describe people. So we're looking for things that have been personified, right? Which means they are things, but we're giving them people, behaviors, and actions. So what I put up here, my Miss Anthony's note, we're going to do this thing together. And then what I put up here as another direction was add. As we read, we're going to do the same thing. As we read, we are going to look for people behaviors. So as I see people things, I'm also going to underline that. Okay. Or as I see people behaviors done by things that are not people, I'm going to underline it. What do you mean, Miss Anthony? Well, come along with me and we're going to do that thing together. You ready? Here we go. Come, little leaves, said the wind one day. Does the wind talk? No. Personification. First one. Going to underline that because that's my action. Come over the meadows with me and play. Put on your dresses of red and gold, for summer is gone and the days grow cold. So actually, Miss Andy can underline all of this because some of these words, and once I kind of get a hang of it and underline, I don't have to keep underlining. Underline is kind of tricky, but soon as the leaves heard the wind's loud call, down they come fluttering one and all. Now I don't have to underline that because that's not personification. Leaves do fall. Over the brown fields they dance and flew. Uh-oh, I know they don't dance and fly though. Sing the soft little songs they knew. None of this actually can happen. I don't know any leaves that sing. Dancing and whirling, the little leaves went. Winter had called them, and they were content. A lot of personification in this. Soon fast asleep in their earthy beds, the snow had laid a coverlet over their head. Snow is not laying anything. Snow is not tucking anybody in at night. Right? And then it says circle the clues that help you figure out kind of what the words mean. Miss Cynthia will add this. I'm not necessarily going to do this piece of it. Simply because we're going to break down together some of these and what is actually happening inside of the poem before we decide to go into the question sets that go along with it. Okay. Come, little leaves. So the wind is actually the narrator. The wind is actually the one that is speaking in this case. Come over the meadows to me and play. Notice I see dialogue. So we're having a conversation. Put on your dresses of red and gold, for summer is gone and the days are, cold. So far, what I noticed in the poem is autumn is coming. The entire story is really about it being a transition from different seasons, from one season to the next, is really what the entire poem is about. Okay, but we're going to look at, in particular, how personification brings the story to life, and we're going to see if we can't use that in order to answer the questions that they give us on the next Iready page. On the next Iready page. All right, here we go. Question 1. How does the poet use the word dresses in line 3 of the poem? I'm going to go back to line 3. Remember that lines and stanzas are also included inside of poems. Not my biggest point for this lesson, but it is something that we need to know. Okay, let's look at line 3. Put on your dresses of red and gold. What does it mean when I say put on your dresses? Are we actually talking about ladies putting on dresses? No, I remember that personification is when things do people action. So in the case, we're talking about leaves doing something. Which one of the answer choices tell me that leaves are doing something? And actually, it's only one answer choice that includes a leaves action. So I want you to keep that in mind. We're not looking for people doing the action. We're looking for a thing. And in our case, our whole poem is about leaves doing it. So Miss Anthony's question is, what is the topic of the poem? Leaves. Which one of your answer choices tells me that a leaf is doing something? Absolutely A. Even deeper, what is the leaf doing? When it says dresses, they're not putting on a dress. But look at the colors they mention. They are fall colors. So it's just simply saying that the leaves are starting to do what? Good, they're starting to change color. They're starting to change color. Look at number 2. Read the lines from the poem. Soon fast asleep in their earthy beds, the snow laid a coverlet over their heads. The poet uses the word coverlet to show that. Miss Anthony put her clue here to answer the question. Look for answer choices that show me that something is covering something else, that show coverage. First of all, that's the only thing I'm looking for right now. Answer choices that show coverage of something. And I see the leaves have fallen. Not coverage there. Show me anything covering anything. A, the snow looks like a blanket. Oh, blanket's covered. Yes. B, we said no. Look at C, the snow looks like a dress. Oh, dress is covered. C, possibly. And then the singing has stopped. Singing doesn't cover anything. Right? So I'm stuck with a 50-50 chance. I'm stuck with A and C. But when I go back and I look at how it uses it, what is the author trying to explain us when he says the snow covers something like a blanket? Or covers something over their head, I look at the last stanza. The snow laid a coverlet over their heads. Think about the first picture we saw. Over your head. What am I thinking about? If I'm laying inside of the bed and I have a what on top of me? Or for me to get a good night's sleep, I need a what? I need a blanket. All right, and if I'm not mistaken, this is actually where I'm going to pause, parents. I just want to kind of introduce the skill to them. I won't actually give an entire lesson because the students will have to do independent practice on their own. But just to kind of get them introduced to that figurative language, here's Miss Anthony's reminder, something that I need to stick to you like glue. Literal means exactly what I just said. Non-literal means I have to actually infer what the author wants me to know. I have to do that. That's the heavy load for me. The author's not exactly saying what he wants me to know, but I have to figure that thing out, and I have to use hints and context clues to do that. That's my job for the week. All right, Miss Anthony is going to shine some Get Epic students because we did this thing. Okay. Top of my list is Talia Patterson, who has logged on to Epic actually today. Kudos, Miss Patterson. Okay. And I have a list of lovely scholars who have logged on March 12th. They logged on that Friday. Let Miss Anthony spend this time before I address those scholars. Please get on Epic. Please get on Epic. Choose yourself a book. Choose yourself a topic. And at the end of this, Miss Anthony will kind of give you a book to look over, to kind of read, just to kind of keep you interested and in the know about different things. It's always good to learn lots of good information. And you do that through reading a book, reading several books. Right. Here we go. March 12th, Shayla logged on. Shayla is also my top reader right now. She has read 36 books, completed 36 books this year. Miss Ramos, watch out now. Hello. Here we go. Ashley, BJ, Edwin, Ezekiel, Jonathan, Katia, Marcus, Nancy, and Pedro have logged on over spring break. Hello. We need to be getting like them. I'm also going to include Joshua O'Neill, who has also completed 31 books. He's done his thing as well. Kudos, Mr. O'Neill. Let's make sure we are on Epic doing our thing. I get one more shout out. We ready? This year we have read and completed, finished, watch out, 571 books and 91.4 total hours. We did that. So this is what I need you doing. If you have not gotten on Epic, the class code, I'm writing here. I already decided in my spirit. I'm going to write it right up here. Our class code. Matter of fact, no, I won't squeeze it. Miss Anthony thought about it. I thought about squeezing it in there. I won't squeeze it. Our class code is RRW 7621. There should not be a reason why you are not logging on, why you are not engaged. 5 to 7 books before we come back. Okay, and every week I will try to update us. If we do not come back in the following weeks, I will just keep us updated. Parents, I want to thank you for helping students stay engaged, for helping them be a part of that learning. I will also add, parents, if you could push students or really assist them, because sometimes I know it's when we get on a break, we kind of get comfortable. If you can make sure that students try to add a good 3 or 4 words that they might not have known using the dictionary to find just new words and new meanings to be able to read stronger, higher level books, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you for all that you all have done. Keep getting your Iready minutes. Every week I'll try to upload just a little bit, just to kind of make sure that you understand how to tackle the lesson, and then something for the children to go back to and refer to in order to make sure that they finish the lesson accurately and correctly. I want to thank you. I appreciate you guys. And this is Clipboard Classroom Chronicles. Keeping the cup with us so we feel like we are actually in the classroom. Make sure you have a pencil in your Iready lesson. I will see you next week, ready to shine some new babies on Get Epic. All right now. Y'all know. Love you. Bye-bye.